Hello my little ravens and welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, I am the Raven and I am the quote-unquote head of this little YouTube channel. And I am going to tell you a little bit about the origins, lore, legends and customs of the Sabbath of Yule. Now, everyone knows about Christmas, and when you think about Christmas, you probably think of presents, the Christmas tree decorated to the very top with an angel or a star, depending on your fancy. Perhaps lots and lots of over-the-top decorations outside your home or outside the home of your neighbors. And, of course, lots and lots of presents. And who can forget Santa Claus, of course, whether or not you believe in him or not. However, not many people know about the pagan Sabbath of Yule, which is the, I would say, origin point of Christmas. Yule falls approximately on the winter solstice, and if you don't know what the winter solstice is, it's the shortest day and the longest night of the year, and it is a period where the daylight begins to wax and spans around 13 nights slash days from around the 19th or 20th of December to around the 6th of January, which is where the 12 days and 12 nights of Christmas comes from for anyone who is Christian. So, the winter solstice itself is the most important time of the day. And it's one of the important days. It's one of the important Sabbaths, and it's where like with Samhain, it's where the dead and the dark fae come around freely. Winter arrives, and the spirit world is once again closest to us. I want to tell you a little bit about one of my favorite legends of Yule, and it comes from Celtic mythology. You see, according to legend, there is this dark Holly King who is disguised as a wren, and his twin, the Oak King, who represents light, is disguised as a robin. Every year at the winter and summer solstice, these two fight over dominance of the earth and over the days, over time, over everything. In actuality, these brothers are two parts of the same thing, the waxing and the waning cycle of the year. However, the Holly King rules the waning year from midsummer to Yule, and the Oak rules from Yule till midsummer. Now, the Holly King represents darkness, decay and destruction, but also represents inner knowledge and mystery, while the Oak King not only represents light, growth and expansion, but also the bridge between our world and the other world. Now, these two mighty kings continuously fight a symbolic battle to win the crown of the year. And to the early Celts, the trees, if you know Ogham, not just the language, but the oracle, as well, which is one of the most sacred of Neo-Druidic traditions, are considered sacred, especially the oak. Did you know that the name Druid comes from the Celtic word drui, which is, and when I say Celtic, I specifically mean Old Irish. It means either oak or sacred. You could take of that what you will. Anyway, completely off the point. Oak trees are deciduous in meaning. They have a dominant state, but they're also quite mysterious when it comes to the other world. And English Christmas holly trees are evergreen and maintain their foliage throughout the year. And as the cold weather approaches, the oak trees completely lose their foliage, while the holly trees, they remain as beautiful as they already did, and their full beauty is, well, the only thing that stands out in what is usually a barren landscape. And at midwinter, it seems that the Holly King has won over his mighty brother. But in actuality, he did not win the battle, because once the sun rises again, the Oak King rallies his forces. And every single year, this battle continues. And despite the fact that they are mortal enemies, without one, the other can no longer exist. And through that, we would no longer have a year to begin with. Now, that is more of a obscure legend, so I will start with, I will now move on to something that sounds a little bit more familiar to you. And that is the story of Ylfodrir and Jolnir. the Yule Father and Yule themselves, the names given to the Germanic and Norse gods that are represented by Odin. Now, there are cases in religious and in academic circumstances where Odin was the original elf, or gift-giving elf. So before Santa was popularized in the Victorian era as this fat, jolly, immortal being, he was a tall, lean, muscular kind of guy with a dark cloak and not a red and white tunic. So these earlier legends describe quote-unquote Santa as a horse rider, not someone who drives a sleigh with magical reindeer. But the magical reindeer also reminds us of Odin's steed Sleipnir, and if you don't know the story of Sleipnir, you should really look it up. It's a little messed up, but it's funny nonetheless. The elder Yule elf, basically the original Santa, was a stern and terrifying figure who was rather ill-willed, to the point where people wanted to stay inside because his furious wild hunt was one of the most feared atrocities that ever graced the supernatural world. There are many accounts in folklore, but one of the most popular ones in Germany was the wayfaring folks being picked up and transported by the wild hunt and disappearing without a trace, or being left lifeless, depending on what you want to believe. Now, this wild hunt was the basis for Christians to say that the wild huntsman was their devil, but the original pagan belief was that these riders were human worshippers of Woden. He is the god of ecstasy, death, and the bridge between life and death. He was accompanied by several ghostly hounds and skeletal entourage. Now, this frightening nature of the wild hunt was definitely something to be used by the Christians. However, the heathens, aka pagans, believed that they also were responsible for fertility and blessing and gift-giving. The fertility aspect could be connected in some way to the return of the dead to their earthly homes at Yule, but some of them brought blessings and bestowed it upon their kin, who they still remember despite being a wild huntsman. Now, it's a bit creepy, and I have to say Yule is kind of creepy, but there you go. The wild hunt was also believed to be another manifestation of eternal connection to the living and the dead. So, there you have it. There's another version of the Yule elf, which is regarding to Thor. There are many legends that tell that Thor has this benevolent protectiveness over mankind, and he has apparently a jolly, fun-loving side to him in this version. Believe me, the Thor that I know is nothing like the thing that is described in the legends, so it must be some sort of folkloric aspect. I'm not entirely sure. I would have to look it up. Modern Yule decorations of straw were formed into goats, goat ornaments, wreaths, and a kind of mock Yule goat head at times. And when the Yule log was burned on the hearth, it was an offering to Thor's altar. So the Yule log that every single night you burn in the hearth or you cook in the oven is technically supposed to be given partially to Thor. I don't know if you're going to do anything with that, but I thought it would be rather funny to tell. So, we know about the wild hunt. We know about the good old Saint Nick and his origins. Now, for the Holy Feast. This is very important. Both the living and the dead have to be considered. Good spirits shall in the Yule food, and what people would used to do would leave offerings outside of the house, like at Samhain. At Samhain you would leave offerings, you would leave offerings. Cats and dogs ate the same food as humans and were brought into the house. And this is the crux. It doesn't matter whether you owned the cat or the dog. Whether they were stray, whether they were tamed, you brought them food. No discussion. So the offerings that were given were cream, beer, bread. These were for the house spirits. And the feasts were held usually by the chieftain or the most important person in the community, and the presents would be given to guests as they left. So it was not just a family thing, it was a community thing. Whether you were Homo sapien, living or dead, it matters not. You come together as a community. The savory foods that were given were mutton, leg of lamb, goose, pork and beef. Special Yule bread would be made. Porridge, apples, sweets and nuts were traditional. And oaths were also given over the holy cup known as the begarfol. The evergreen were fruit trees, and they kept their leaves throughout the year as an obvious symbol of endurance. They were also commemorated during this time. They were considered good luck and were honoured as powerful spirits in their own right, mostly towards their genealogy, which was the living aspect of the tree. Now, as we probably all know, these trees had red berries, which were the original Yule decoration. And this is something also very important. The Yule trees were cosmic tree bearers of the 9 worlds in the Norse cosmos. So that is also why they revered, because they kept the world as it is. And another Yule tradition that still survives, as I mentioned before, was the Yule log. These were specifically chosen from a tree to be burnt for at least 12 hours, which was possibly to originate for the 12 days of Yule. As I mentioned before, they were given to Thor, and the oaks were supposed to be the most appropriate choice due to the fact that the wood was durable, but also to commemorate the battle between the holly and the oak kings. Now, English law holds that Yule logs should never be bought, but gotten on their own property or a neighbour's together with the neighbour. And this tradition is still present in today's culture, and were supposed to bring good luck and protect the house from lightning. Now these days, some people substitute a large candle for the Yule log or burn them all through the 13 nights of the holy time. So this is done to honour and aid Suna, the goddess of the sun, through the darkest time of the year, to ward off evil spirits and the darkness, and to not only bring back the solstice, but to help guide the Oak King in some versions of the legend. So, why am I telling you this? Well, the thing is, I have been trying to find a way to not only educate people about paganism without using my own practices, until I get a steady fan base that is willing to listen and to see it and to respect it, and not what I call Bible bash me for it. Now, Yule doesn't really get much attention, and I thought this is worthy of telling. Do we actually have Yule songs as pagans? A few, but not as many as Christians, which is not surprising. In fact, most of our Yule carols are based on ones written by Christians, because we have a severe lack of carols due to the fact singing carols, as you probably can tell from what I told you, was not part of the Yule tradition. It was something introduced by Christianity. So to actually have an original Yule song is very, very difficult. I mean, if someone wants to write one, research and use some of the things that I just said, you can please do. And if you finish it, please let me know, and I will listen to it, and I will probably feature it somewhere here in the channel and give you and give you most of the credit, since it is your song. So I will just make an entire playlist of Yule carols that are as original as it can be. So if you're interested, please let me know. If not, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will try to do another, mostly shitpost-esque. But I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas/Yule. And I will see you, and the Rose will see you in the new year. Merry Yule and blessed be, my lovely ravens.